Hey there, Anna from Girls on Key. How are you today? Today's video is about writing a poem for the page. I'm going to give you a couple of tips, a couple of ideas if you're wanting to write specifically for the page and how to do that. If you haven't done it before, maybe you have and you just want to sort of get some fresh ideas, that's cool. I'm an editor, I'm a writer. Girls on Key is, we provide opportunities for women and non-binary poets. So girlsonkey.com, check it out in the link below. Hey guys, today we're talking about writing a poem for the page. So I'm going to give you 5 tips for how to look at your poem when you're writing specifically to be read on the page. What do you want to consider? So I'm a writer, I'm a poet, I'm also an editor with over 15 years experience, so hopefully some of these tips will help you with your poetry. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is the words. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go from a micro level to a macro level and then back. So we're going to start with the smallest element of your poem, which is the words. So number 1, what key are you writing in? So in music, we talk about a key, which is might be a minor key, it might be a major key. It's a way of choosing which notes go into your work in order to create a certain mood or a certain feeling. So in poetry, it's the same. You can write in the key of something. For example, if you were writing a Gothic poem, or if you were in the vein of Edgar Allan Poe, you might choose words that relate to the style or the mood or the key of death or darkness or horror. So think about what key or what mood you want to write in, and maybe list out a whole lot of words, or check out a thesaurus or go online and think about what words kind of give a colour or an impression that fit that mood. So that's quite a fun thing to do. So think about your words and your key and how that colours your work, because sometimes words creep in that might not fit the key and they might seem jarring and they might not quite fit with the style that you're wanting to bring across. So start with the words. So we're going from micro to macro and we'll go back, but yeah, starting to think about the word selection that you choose, because there are various types of words that have different feelings and meanings and moods associated with them. For example, you could have jagged words. The way that the word looks on the page is kind of jagged, and the lettering itself actually brings across a certain feeling in the mind of the reader. And so you can think about that. Are there soft words or words like hum, for example, that evoke a feeling or a mood? So have a think about that. The second thing is your line. So this is moving from the word to the line. In my view, and talking to poets like Michelle Lieber in Australia, for example, she mentions that your line is everything. Your line is very vital. So the line, every single line that you have can have its own meaning. Now there's something called enjambment, which is a really cool tool that I like to use sometimes, which is where at the end of the line you carry it on and flow it around into the next line. So it kind of cuts off at a certain point to create one meaning, but then when you read it into the next line, it creates a whole nother meaning. And this is one thing that I really love about poetry on the page. I personally am I call myself a page poet, I guess. I really love the visual element. I love to spend time with a book and just reading through it again and again and picking up different meanings every time that I look at the page. And so that's just me personally, but other people might be different. They might prefer to hear it or to watch it live or to see it performed and theatrical, and that's fine. But we're just talking specifically in this video about poetry on the page. So first was the words, then second was the lines. The third thing is your stanzas. So this is the equivalent of a paragraph in a non-fiction piece. So thinking about how your ideas are chunked together. So say, for example, that the first idea was that you want to have it in a time sequence. So you've designed a poem and you want to kind of take the reader on your journey from childhood through to adulthood, for example. So the first stanza might be you at 5 years old, the second one might be you in the present, and the third might be imagining what life might be like when you're dying or you're old or you're older. So that's just one example of looking at breaking your text up into groups or stanzas. You can have a look at stanzas online just to see how that works, but it's up to you. You are the creator of your poem, so you can design the stanzas in any way that you like. But one thing you might want to look at is the edges of your stanzas. Do they look completely jagged? Is there lines that just stick out and some are small? And how does that feel as a reader? If you were to read that, how would you feel about it? So it's having a look at that and going, actually feels a little bit imbalanced. Number 4, we're going to talk about the overall design. So once you've got your stanzas, think about how the stanzas fit together in the overall look of the page. So for example, if you've got 4 stanzas on one page and 1 line on another page, you maybe want to condense it down into 1 page. Maybe not. Maybe you want to have it like that. Think about, do you want it to look stable or unstable, jagged, not jagged? And this leads me into point number 5, which relates to the visual elements. So there's something called concrete poetry, which is poetry that is made in a visual format. So it might be that the words are in a spiral, or they might be in the shape of a tree, for example, or a leaf, or a cloud. Now that kind of work is interesting to me, and there's not, I don't know of any specific poets working in that field. I'm sure there are a lot, but maybe you can tell me about them below, or if you do it yourself, there are any good examples. I know that they are out there, and it's kind of can be quite an experimental and interesting form, because you get to play around with the purpose of why you have something on the page, which is for it to be visual. And that's also something I want to reiterate. If you're doing it for the page, someone is going to be looking at it visually, so it really is important how each part looks. If you're reading it out loud, you don't have to worry so much about that aspect, and if you're just wanting it to be a spoken word piece, you just write it for yourself so you know where the lines are and when you go to read it out. But if someone's reading it on the page, it's very important that you utilize to the best that you can the tools and the kind of, I guess, the pros of having it on the page, which is that you can bring in other meanings and other layers through those visual elements. So when it comes to concrete poetry, one of the things that is quite interesting to me is sometimes someone will write a poem about a tree, for example. Now the obvious thing would be to create it in the shape of a leaf, to put a leaf around it, to put a picture of a leaf, and that's fine. You know, it's illustrative. It just adds an extra nice zhuzh to it. But one thing that you might want to be aware of, and it's talking about what I've said in some other videos, which is it starts becoming art when it stops becoming arbitrary, is that what is that visual element adding to your work? What does that visual element add to the work? Sometimes I think we can be arbitrary about it, or we can be simple in how we approach the visual elements, but sometimes it's actually a really cool tool to use that to enhance your meaning or to add an extra layer of meaning. So for example, if you're writing about a tree, maybe you could put a tree house, or you could put a non-organic aspect like a factory or something that doesn't relate to a tree, so subvert it a little bit just to kind of add another layer of meaning, I guess. So maybe not so obvious. So think about different ways that you could expand on that and use that as a tool to enhance your meaning as opposed to just having it there for the sake of it. And also think about using those elements sparingly, and think about your audience. Are you overdoing one element? Is every single poem in the shape of a spiral? Why does it have to be that way? So think about that, and think about, am I hammering this use of this particular tool too much? Sometimes it's like, you know, if you have a color, you might just want to put a little bit of highlight or a little bit of something to kind of bring that highlight out, but you don't want to use it too much because it can be overkill. And that's completely up to you. If you want to overkill with something, go for it. If you want to, you know, if you want it to be extreme and over the top and experimental, that's absolutely fine. That's up to you, but it comes back to your intention, and we've talked about that. So what is your intention with it? Do you want it to do that? Do you want the visual element to be like crazy in your face, like take over and this like be completely mental? Then that's absolutely up to you. But at the end of the day, did you choose that, or did you just do it and didn't think about it? So that's up to you to think about. So just to recap, 5 things to think about when you're writing a poem for the page. The first is the words or the key that you're playing in. Number 2 is the line. Think about your line length. Think about how you can run ideas together, having an encapsulated meaning all together in one line. So not just 2 words as part of a line that don't speak on their own. Making use of that line. 3 is the stanzas or the paragraphs or the chunks. 4 is the overall design of the whole thing, and then 5 is the visual elements. So hopefully some of that stuff has helped you when it comes to writing a poem on the page. If you have any further ideas or ideas for videos, please comment below. As always, I'm happy to make videos if there's something that you're interested in. We do videos about poetry, girlsonkey.com for more info about what we do. And yeah, don't forget to subscribe, to like, to share if you like this video. So thanks so much guys, and we'll see you on next Friday.